My name is Jackson Reef, though the guys I used to fly with called me Spectre. 38. Grounded by a psych eval I still think was lazy, and riding home in row 9, coach, to bury my mother. 2 seats across, my ex-wife Marielle had front row, seats to my fall from grace. Designer dress, perfect hair, and a new husband with a boardroom smile. She leaned toward him. Just loud enough for half the cabin. Jackson used to fly jets, she said. Now he's just a passenger. They laughed. I didn't bite. I stared out at the wet tarmac of Schiphol and tried to breathe like the therapist taught me. The engines spooled up. The aircraft vibrated into that steady, reassuring hum. I felt the rhythm in my bones, the way pilots do. Then came a flutter in the tone no one else would notice. A hiccup. I told myself it was nerves. The bang erased the argument. Metal boomed, bins blew open, laptops and perfume bags tumbled into the aisle. The cabin lights flickered and stabilized in that sickly green emergency glow. A burnt electrical smell crawled under the masks that dropped from the ceiling. Screams stacked on top of alarms. I pulled my mask on and looked right. Brent was chalk white. Marielle was statue still, pupils huge, the kind of freeze I'd seen in combat. Then the PA cracked alive with the calmest voice in the world. Get me Spectre, row 9. No one had called me that in 2 years. A flight attendant reached me, already telling me to sit. I gave her my name and call sign. She checked a tablet, went still, and stepped aside. I fought my way forward through fear and carry-ons and prayers. The cockpit door was open per emergency protocol. Inside, the co-pilot was bleeding and dazed. The captain, Vanderberg, was wrestling a wounded airplane. Spectre, he said in a Dutch lilt. Jackson Reef, I answered, sliding the co-pilot aside and taking the seat. Former USAF, what have you got? Right engine dead, left overheating, 2 hydraulic systems gone, autopilot offline, FMS unreliable, copy. Hands on the yoke, feet finding the pedals like I'd never left. We're still flying. While we're flying, we have options. I flipped a covered panel most civilians never touch, the emergency comms block, and dialed a frequency I hadn't used since NATO certification. I pressed transmit and spoke 3 quick sentences in Dutch: identification, priority coordination, and request for emergency handling. The reply came fast, crisp. Spectre, Amsterdam Military Control. Authentication received. Stand by. Vectors, populated. Wind at multiple altitudes. Diversion fields. Focal airbase, 42 miles. Long Cold War runway. Fire and medical rolling. Eric, I told the captain, I need you steady on the yoke and honest in your calls. I'll work the problem. The second engine coughed, then ran hotter. Our altitude bled. The Dutch countryside slid under us. Chessboard. Fields, tiny towns, lives that had no idea a 170-ton glider was limping overhead. We dumped fuel. We trimmed for best glide. The remaining engine crept into the red. How long before she cooks? Eric asked. 10 minutes, 15 if she's feeling generous. She wasn't. The sound she made dying was small, almost polite. Then there was only wind over metal and the creak of strain. No thrust, no autopilot, no hydraulic assist on half the system. Pure stick and rudder flying. Twin Airbase was now the best shot. Long enough, clear enough, closer than focal. Our glide math said we'd come up short. I trimmed again, trading comfort for reach. Electrical smoke burrowed in. Batteries kept the emergency lights alive. Do we drop the gear? Eric asked. Not yet. We need distance first, then drag. The runway grew from a pencil line to a slab. Emergency trucks dotted the edges like toy soldiers. We were still short. Manual extension, I said. Without hydraulics? He frowned. Watch me. I yanked the handle. It fought like a rusted anchor. No time to confirm the lock. No time for anything but a choice. 500 feet, Eric read. Speed 180. We're hot. Hold on. In a normal landing. You kiss the mains first. This wasn't normal. I pinned the nose wheel first, an ugly gunshot smack to prove the gear had locked. We bounced, then settled. I brought the mains down like dropping a safe. Sparks skittered. Tires screamed, shredded, vanished. No reverse thrust, only brakes and prayer. The jet slewed as a main blew. The end of the runway rushed up, a wall of trees waited like teeth. Come on, I told the airframe. Earn your keep. We stopped with 500 feet to spare. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the cabin erupted. Cheers, sobbing, the sound people make when terror finally lets go. I unclenched hands I couldn't feel and looked at the trees we hadn't hit. How? Eric asked. Honestly, I said, breathless. I don't know. We were due some luck. The hearing room 3 weeks later had fluorescent lights and the scent of burned coffee. FAA officials, airline lawyers, insurance adjusters, reporters. They'd replayed every second. The explosion, the glide, my comms in Dutch, the nose first touch. Then they called me forward. Mr. Reef, the chairwoman, began. Your military record notes hesitation under pressure. How do you reconcile that with your actions? The hesitation was 4 seconds in a no-win simulator, I said. KL-447 wasn't a simulator. There was no reset button. We solved what could be solved. They asked about the military frequency. I admitted I lacked formal authority and added that I had the training, the need, and 237 souls to answer for. They pressed on landing gear and glide math. I gave them numbers. What I wanted to say was simpler. When both engines quit and the hydraulics don't play, there's no checklist, only training, teamwork, and refusing to die. They cleared me. The airline settled its claims. The story shrank in the news cycle. Month later, a reunion near Twin brought 60 passengers. The businessman from first class shook my hand like a son. A young mother introduced me to her baby. A teenager told me she'd chosen aeronautical engineering. Eric spoke about procedures. The airline rep spoke about upgrades. I stood to the side until I saw Marielle at the back, dressed like a civilian for once, holding a manila envelope. I needed to see this, she said when we were face to face. What you did. Inside the envelope, an affidavit and emails, showing Brent's firm had pulled my psych eval through illicit channels and fed it to the press. Insurance for a divorce narrative. Beneath the documents, Marielle's letter. You weren't just a passenger. You were the only one flying. I spent 2 years convincing myself you were broken. Watching you that day, I realized you were human. And that was exactly what was needed. I'm sorry. I folded the letter and handed it back. Thank you, I said, for telling the truth. The affidavit goes to your lawyer, she said. The letter was for you. I looked around the room, at lives that had continued because we'd refused to accept gravity's first answer, at a captain who'd trusted a stranger, at people who would now make different choices. I'm the same person I was, I told her. You just weren't looking. That night, in a quiet hotel room, I opened the old logbook. Under the date, I wrote, Lesson learned, holding steady matters. So does acting. 4 seconds in a simulator doesn't define a pilot. 20 minutes in a real sky does. I closed the book and stared out toward the dark strip of runway where the truck still waited for the next impossible problem. Somewhere, another pilot was wondering if they'd freeze when it counted. I hoped they'd remember what I finally did. Sometimes you don't wait to be more than a passenger. You stand up when someone whispers your name, and you fly.